Hello, everybody. I'm Messinak,
And I'm LJ.
and streaming to you from a golden beach, this is Mac and J. Hello once again, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. I hope you're all having a wonderful day of whenever you view this.
Yeah,
For you, who knows? It could be a Tuesday.
it could be.
Who knows? How are you doing, LJ?
I've been busy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got a lot of things to do.
a lot of exciting videos being made.
Yeah, in fact, I'm probably going to be working on one right now as we're doing
Oh boy.
this. So,
Want to give any epic hints?
I don't need to give any hints. I'll just say I'm working on the 2002 combo model and alternate model review. The remixed review, episode Dos.
Oh yeah, Dose Point oh.
So, yeah, no, I'm basically going to potentially, I don't know yet, but I'm probably going to be working on the Barag combo model, or alternate model, I should specify. So,
Well, that's fun. I forget if that's any good or not.
no, it's not
I
fun.
vaguely recall building it. Oh, it's not fun.
No, I've already kind of sort of made it once, and it's not fun. It is a long, arduous process because it's primarily Technic. You're taking two Technic models, you're breaking them apart, and then you're putting them right back together again.
But don't you enjoy the experience of Bionicle set construction?
I mean, yeah, but it's shut up. Anyway,
Dude, I was at my Target the other day and I saw the freaking Han Solo construction figure sitting in the back room, and I scanned it and it was on clearance for $17. And I'm like, I really miss CCBS. I want to buy this. And then I looked at its face again and I realized that I couldn't live with myself if I actually bought it, no matter the price, because of how horrifically ugly and monstrous the thing looks. But I came back home and I was like, man, I miss CCBS. I miss Bionicle. I miss Hero Factory. I miss it all. And I just spent hours looking for like stuff to buy, and I didn't end up buying anything. But I
that's kind of
almost did.
it's kind of what I was hoping for, because like as you're talking about it, I was suggesting, well, maybe you shouldn't buy Star Wars construction because you're not gonna do anything with it, and you're just gonna sit there going, "Why did I buy this?" So buy
I
HF
found some
instead.
killer deals though.
Yeah, I know.
I started looking up HF Invasion from Below, and I realized one very important thing, and that is HF Invasion from Below is really hard to find for like reasonable prices. For some reason, not a lot of people are selling it. They're selling the stuff from it for anything that I would consider reasonable. Most of what I see on eBay is just bootlegs. So if anyone wants to sell me an Evo XL machine, you know where to find me.
Him saying those words is like throwing up blood.
Yeah, I don't like Evo XL machine. Or Evo Walker for that matter, but we've been over that in the past.
Yeah.
Enough about HF. That's not why people come here. LJ,
Hmm.
weekly plugs. Hit him.
Okay. Eat that, you stupid plug. Oh, you meant figuratively. Got it. All right. So, as usual, a few things. First of all, if you want a place to discuss anything that we talk about here and interact with the community and ask LEGO author Greg Farshty any questions you might have that he would be willing to answer, head on over to board.ttvchannel.com. These are the TTV message boards. It's a good time. You have to be 13 years or older and read our rules and whatnot. Currently, we have a poll up, top 10 moments of the decade for the TTV channel. Check that out. There's also 2020, but we're too early into the year. So there are TTV message boards in case Copa decides they don't like this video. Additionally, we have the Patreon, patreon.com/the channel. We were going for a stretch goal of 100 patrons. We achieved it, and now we have a full-time Minecraft faction server on the island of Matanui. It is up right now. It has been quite a fascinating experience. So low as $1 a month, and you can join. Just let me know what your Patreon name and your Minecraft username is, and you can be whitelisted. So there is that. Okay, gosh. Additionally, Twitter at the TTV channel, at Messanak, and at the Elder Johnson, JOHNSEN.
Yep.
I think that's everything.
I would like to say about the Minecraft server, it's really fun. Everybody should consider joining it if you've ever even just had like a passing interest in Minecraft. The amount of shenanigans that have already gone on in the server is wild, and it's only been up for like a little under 2 weeks?
Yeah,
week and
it
a half?
hasn't been up very long. And
No, it's already bananas. Gakoro has been set up as a neutral space where you can buy stuff. Takoro is a literal abandoned husk of its former self, being used as a mob spawner. Pokoro is this giant fortress. And I don't really know about Kokoro, Likoro, or Onukoro. I think those might actually still be up for grabs.
Likoro has been claimed as part of like the reservation. They want to preserve Likoro so it doesn't get burned to the ground like it did the first time.
Yeah.
Pokoro has been claimed. Kokoro, I think, is open.
Kokoro and Onukoro. So if anybody listens to this and they want to go take over those spaces, a lot of people have built off the island or in their own areas, but there's still a few bonkle landmarks. I was expecting somebody to make a Kini Nui base, but I don't think anyone did that.
No. I'd like to make Kini Nui a neutral zone. Yeah. For trading and everyone to kind of meet and conduct agreements, stuff like that.
That'd be cool. Point being, the server you might feel like, oh, it's already been going on for like a week and a half. I've already missed the initial fun times. Nope. Stuff's changing by the day, and because we have an economy system, it's decently easy to get resources and catch up. So don't feel like you're left behind. It's never too late.
Yep. So
all right,
it's fun.
With that being the case, let's move on to this week's topic. So last week we took a walk down memory lane and went over Bionicle G2. And we went did a play-by-play.
Thank you.
We did a play-by-play summary of that theme's life from its initial inception all the way to its, glorious destruction. And we talked a lot about the problems that it had, and some of the reasons they came about: the oversimplification, the confusing, mixed messages, and the goal of accessibility, the confusing story. We talked about all those, flaws. And to those who listen to that, you might think, well, why don't you, G2 isn't that bad. I mean, everything has flaws. And you're right. You're very correct. G2 is certainly not the only LEGO theme that's ever had a bunch of problems. And it's certainly not the only iteration of Bionicle to ever have problems. Bionicle G1, for all the praise it gets, and for all the, times that G1 has been leveraged against G2 as this amazing, untouchable, work of art, it had a lot of problems too on the story side. In our sets video, we've already kind of gone over some of the bad set trends that Bionicle had. So this video will primarily focus on the story. We're going to take a look at G1. We're going to take a look at a lot of G1's issues, but more importantly, a lot of the, preconceptions the community has about those issues, and a lot of the finger pointing and the blame game that goes on when discussing them as people try to find a scapegoat for why, X or Y happened in Bionicle G1. Unlike with G2, where it's a pretty cut and dry issue of a lack of vision, G1's problems are a lot harder to break down so simply. They're a lot more layered, a lot more nuance to them. So I think a good place to start would be kind of the beginning. In the early years of Bionicle, there's one issue that has been a crux in the community for many years, a focal point of discussion. You and I have discussed it before. People have gotten into very heated debates about it. And I think this one problem is a good springboard into a lot of the larger points. That being love.
Oh, gosh dang it. Are we doing this already?
Romance. We're not going to go
Gosh.
super in depth into it.
See,
Because honestly, we could fill a whole episode just on that. We kind of already have in the past.
yeah.
So don't expect a crazy breakdown on, the love debate. But as a summary, in the Modern Day Online game and the Bo-Rock animations made by Templar Studios, there were pretty overt moments where the team was like hinting towards a relationship or a crush between Huki and Maku and Jala and Holly, and it even persisted in the Bionicle Mask of Light the movie. You'll note that all this is within the first 3 years, and none of it takes place in the books or the comics, aka the things that were regarded by many as the mainline story. And then it comes, I forget when Greg specifically made a comment on it. Do you recall if it was before or after 03?
Honestly, I remember
debunked.
I remember looking into this a long time ago and looking through years worth of Greg question and answer backlogs, and I do not remember if it was prior or after 03. I'm gonna bank
That's
on
fine.
after.
It would make sense to be after 03 because that's when the community, would have accepted it as, fact, quote unquote, by that point. But what happened is Greg basically came out and said, yeah,
No.
romance isn't a thing. Yeah, no. They do not feel love towards one another. They can feel familial relationships. They can feel love in a non-romantic sense. They can care about people. But romance as a concept doesn't exist because they're robots. It's a redundant concept.
Yeah.
And you can debate that for a while. LJ and I have done so, as I said, with the LJ Johnson show. We might in the future.
It's a great show.
That's not the point. The point of the matter is that Greg came in and said this was not the case, which exposed him to the wrath of the masses.
Yeah.
Yep,
it was a case of don't shoot the messenger, and everyone ended up being a gunship, and they just
because I forget
lit Greg up.
I forget if it was Greg's mandate or if it came down from on high. Well, if it was like a tenant.
Well, here's
the story Bible.
Here's the thing. It couldn't have been a Greg mandate because Greg, the misconception here is one that is going to be touched upon again and again and again. This is something that I have directly asked him.
Which will basically be a big topic in this episode, so get ready. This is like thesis statement time.
Greg Farshty, this is a common misconception. Greg Farshty is not and was never the head of the Bionicle story team. He was a member of it, however, he was not in charge of it. Okay, and that's really where a lot of misconceptions come from. People believe that Greg was in charge of the story, and that is not the case. He was a member of a story team. He had a variety of people around him, and they would get together and discuss what should happen throughout a given year. And I went ahead, I talked to him, who confirmed this, and I also went and I talked to Alistair Swinnerton. Now, a couple of things. First, that's a name you may not be familiar with, but you ought to be, because he is one of the pivotal original creators of the theme. He's responsible for a lot of the atmosphere that went into the theme. He named the Toamata, and he was instrumental in the early years of Bionicle. Is worth mentioning, he very recently announced on Twitter he recently got a cancer diagnosis. So if you could all keep him in your positive thoughts, that would be much appreciated. And follow him on Twitter. I'll go ahead and get his handle at the moment. But regardless, he said there was nothing. I don't remember if I asked him this or if this was something that community member Maku asked him. Because Maku, he's gone ahead and made an outstanding document going over all of the early concepts and themes and kind of the prototype groundwork for Bionicle way back, and compiled it all into a really great document. In it, Swinnerton was asked, well, is love canon? Was it ever in the story Bible? And Mr. Swinnerton said no. It was never mentioned. It was never discussed, never addressed. It was not a part of it. So, there just wasn't anything in the story Bible that to go off of in regards to that. It just wasn't a thing. Real quick, but before you say something, Masso, you can follow him, Alistair Swinnerton. It's going to be at AlSwin, ALSWINN.
There you go. And please do. There's a lot of cool stuff over there.
Oh, he's great. He's awesome. Yeah, he's very entertaining, and he's also got a really great book out right now, The Multiverse of Max Tovey, which you should definitely check out.
So in this instance, it's very clear, if it was never in the story Bible, one way or the other, you know, you might say, well, if it was never something that was notated upon for these characters, then why was it in official media? Why was it in Minogue? Why was it in the Borak animations? And why was it, not so subtly implied in the movies? And it all comes back to what I said in a past episode of what I've said in the past. In regards to Minogue, you must remember, Lego did not make that. That was not a Lego product. I've said it time and time again. It was not only not made by Lego, it was made almost in spite of Lego. It was running against what they wanted to do for the theme. It was made with the scraps and the leftovers. It was all Templar who were given a green light to do this, seemingly with minimal oversight at that point, probably because Lego itself was scrambling to figure out all their other, mixed media stuff, and it all ended up falling apart. So Templar just kind of had a green light to basically do whatever within reason. I'm sure there were some people watching over them, but it's not like back then there was this regimented, strict order of canon where they were like, okay, so you want to do love, but that violates this. This wasn't in the story Bible because they're biomechanical beings who do not feel love, so take this out. It was seemingly pretty lackadaisical.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty much able to do whatever. And the movies, similar, not as bad. There was obviously a lot more oversight there with members of the actual story team.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also there were more creative liberties in the movies that were taken than there were in the comics or the books or the story serials. Eventually it diluted down to primarily Greg and others, but back then there were a lot more cooks in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Ergo, the message got lost a little bit in translation. And the issue that I kind of discussed with LJ on the show as a brief recap was, well, do you really expect little Timmy, who's playing Minogue for the first time because he got a pamphlet in his McDonald's Happy Meal telling him to go check the website, to know of the canon discrepancy between production crews that led to this decision being made that does not actually reflect in canon? Or does he trust that the Bionicle game is part of the Bionicle story?
Yeah, and that's... I have a rebuttal to that, but I'm going to withhold it for now because this is going to be its own episode in the future.
Exactly. The point is it Greg's fault? I would say no, but I can see why people would say it is, because he's taking something that in their mind, in their warped perception, he's taking something that was established in official material, in some of the earliest material, and in some of the most popular material with the movies, and essentially saying, no, that's not canon or semi-canon or whatever. He's quote-unquote decanonizing. But the people who scapegoat Greg as the reason for that are, again, they're placing him on more high of a pedestal than he is at that point. He was not the head honcho of Bionicle. He was just following a directive. He was like, does romance exist? Well, let me check the story Bible. The other people wrote, no, it's not here. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, well, put it in. And he's like, but I don't want to write for it.
Yeah, and of course,
So why would he put it in?
yeah, yeah. No, I think that makes perfect sense, and also the explanations, the given reasons that he has had, also I think kind of make sense. You know, they have no need to feel that emotion at all. It would never even be remotely programmed to allow them to even consider feeling it whatsoever. Obviously, they were given sentience by Velika, but and that's something else we'll get into, I can assure you.
Oh, yes.
But it was just never given to them at all. And I think the fact that they never really needed that or anything, and sure, you could say, well, they never really needed any of the emotions, and that's perfectly reasonable. It's perfectly valid. But
yeah.
I mean,
the point is he has in-universe logic for not wanting to write for it, and he also has out-of-universe logic, which is literally just he's the writer. He doesn't really want a romantic subplot.
Mm-hmm.
So he says no. But they've really gone in on him over the years for a lot of stuff, and similarly to this, in relation. Another one of the earliest issues with Bionicle was the gender ratio of the teams, and the fact that the only female characters could be affiliated with the water element.
Mm-hmm.
That also is not a Greg decision.
That definitely was not a Greg decision.
No.
He had nothing to do with that. That's for darn sure. Additionally,
and yet I still see people like throwing that as it's his fault.
Freaking hilarious. He definitely was not the one that did that. Now he also wasn't the one that added the female element to things. That was, oh heavens, what is her name? Hang on, I'm gonna look this up.
Oh boy.
I'll find it. But anyway, that somebody else was responsible for that because originally Galley was not even a member. Well, Galley was a dude from the start. Galley was not female, but someone else.
This is accurate.
Let's see.
Also, super chat from Sir Perry. I missed the beginning. What did I miss? Not much. We're talking about controversial Bionicle plot elements and who's responsible for them. Thank you for supporting.
I believe Perry is also a patron.
Hey, double the thanks then.
There we go. Robin Smith. The Lego General Counsel and head of the legal department in the American office. She apparently lobbied designers to include a female character, which is how Galley ended up.
Dang.
How she is.
See, I didn't even know that. You learn new things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
the whole love thing, the whole gender thing, these were early foundational things. They were, in some cases, written in the story Bible and lobbied for by other people to get, some kind of like female character to serve as representation. Or in the case of the love situation, was literally the result of a studio essentially having complete creative freedom to do whatever they want because of a lack of oversight. If you want to be mad at anyone and this is why you can't really, this blame game isn't healthy. If you want to be mad at anyone, you would be mad at Lego for not having oversight on Monog, which caused plot holes. But if you're going to go down that route, the Monog we get would not have been what we actually received, which I don't think anyone wants because Monog is beloved. The lack of oversight is why they were able to make it how they did. So, but you can't expect every person to have the same vision or the same, wish for something when you have a product like this that's so multifaceted with so many forms of media and so many different opinions. Like, I do agree the romance thing is a case of mixed messaging, but it's not the case of the mad Greg Farshty running rampant with power. That's a mischaracterization.
Yeah, No. So it's like, and whether or not you like these things or dislike these things, I mean, that's going to be totally up to you. I have no major attachment to the gender ratio. I think it's a little superfluous. It doesn't really add anything. As far as love in the story is concerned, I'm actually perfectly fine with it not being an aspect. I think Bionicle did perfectly fine without romance in the story. Love as familial, friendship, that kind of thing, that existed, but the romance stuff, I think it was fine without it. That's just a perspective. But
LJ and I disagree on this enough to have fun discussions, so stay tuned in the coming weeks.
Oh, yeah.
But we both agree that it's not Greg's fault.
Yeah, no, it's not. Now, there were things Greg did have a part in, and we'll get to those. But for these fundamental things that people greatly have an issue about, it's not Greg Farshtey.
I mean, first of all, a YouTube comment from... Oh, no, not a YouTube comment. Sorry, a patron comment from Sakota. My bad. Yes, do you know if it was Greg's idea to get rid of the gender and love thing in 09?
I don't know.
I don't know about Greg's idea, but he did obviously by that point have a lot more influence in the Bionicle story than he did back in 2001, 03.
I hesitate to say that. I think it's pretty much, it was the same throughout.
When did Bob Thompson leave?
I mean, he left in 2005, but Greg still wasn't head of the story team.
Well, I know, but the more people leave, the more tasks get given, the more responsibility gets handed to the people who stay.
Bob Thompson was the head of the story team. Once he left, Greg still wasn't made head of the story team.
I wonder who was when Bob Thompson left.
I actually don't know.
That'd be good knowledge to know.
It would be.
And before Faber. No.
No, it wasn't Faber.
Faber will
Stop
save
it.
us.
Stop it.
Faber will save us all.
Real quick, YouTube comment, a spy gamer says, Glatorian might be able to feel love since they aren't nanomachines. They do. They can.
Yeah, there's no might about it. There was a whole story serial about...
Yeah, Samad's tale is...
Kina freaking fell for Matanui.
Yeah, it is actually canon that Kina romantically loved Matanui. And Matanui, I made a joke about this in my, I think it was the skit from my Matanui review, where Kina's like, Matanui, I think I love you. And Matanui goes, what's that?
What's a love? So yeah, that's what people are referencing for anyone confused. The Bara Magna characters, they're not robots, they're organic, ergo none of these restrictions that we've talked about have any application to them whatsoever.
Yes.
It's a Torrid universe only.
Yeah, correct.
So those are the two primary controversies from Bionicle's early years. I can't really think of much else from 01 to 03 that people just have a hatred for that's still debated to this day. People are pretty chill with most other stuff from the golden years.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing would be the whole Maori controversy.
Yeah, that was totally Greg's fault.
No,
he was definitely responsible for the Maori.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right, listen here. And for what it's worth, I think even the Maori were, they weren't happy that certain. My understanding of it was always that they were not happy with certain words being used to mean things they did not mean, like Tahunga, which was, if I'm not mistaken, and it's been a while since I looked into the subject, meant like a priest or an elder, was being used for your common villager, and they were upset about that. Along with some other names, which is why you saw specific names being changed. But like the main six, Liwa, Tahu, Pohatu, Liwa, Gali, Tahu, and Onua, those remain the same.
Yeah, there were some which are more accurate than others.
Yeah.
And then some which were viewed from a lens of, disrespectfulness.
Yeah. And I don't really think you're gonna find many people who argue against that. I mean, Maybe Lego's lawyers. Haha, no, I'm kidding.
Epic.
So, yeah.
In regards to the next few years, the prequel era, like a lot of the problems with that, they basically boil down to things like, Vakama's betrayal not
Yeah.
being communicated well. And Greg's expressed many times that he was not a fan of that.
And I personally tend to agree.
Yeah. So whoever's fault that was would be probably the person whoever made that decision. I don't know who that would be at that point. Head of the story team, maybe Bob Thompson. But Greg has publicly said many times that he would have preferred for Matau to be the traitor in Web of Shadows, not Vakama.
Yeah.
And whether you agree with that or not, that's one of the rare times Greg's expressed like an outright dissenting opinion on something, because in his mind, I forget what were his reasons for not liking it. It just didn't make sense.
It makes sense with the story for the character of Vakama, because he had always been so insistent on saving the Matoran and doing what he could to protect Metronui, that you have basically two different characters at the end of Legend of Metronui and the beginning of Web of Shadows. End of Legend of Metronui, Vakama has had his character arc. He has gained confidence in the fact that he is a Toa and he's capable of defending the island of Metronui and the Matoran. And then at the beginning of Web of Shadows, he's this bossy, arrogant jerk who's like, are we here to like sleep in the mud, or are we here to rescue the Matoran? And then he gets turned into Hordika, and he has self-doubt that he projects outward by being angry at everybody else. And then he helps the bad guys do the exact thing that he didn't want them to do.
It doesn't make any sense. Greg's movie novelization handles it better, as good as it can be,
because he tried to salvage it.
He gave insight into Vakama's mind and was like, well, what could maybe make him feel this way? And he was like, maybe he wants to live up to Lee Khan's legacy, and he feels that tremendous pressure. But it's like, I don't even think Lee Khan's name was mentioned once in the movie.
It's not.
So there you go. There's the divide right there. At that point, as far as why that decision was made, if I had to hazard a guess, it's probably because, as shallow as it is, superficial as it is, the red characters are the main characters, and they probably wanted, the red guy to have the starring role in the year's story, and not have all the focus be on the green guy.
I mean, that's a theory. I suspect that it might have actually just been the head of the story team, Bob Thompson, really just didn't want it to be Matau, because it is known that Matau is his favorite character. And I mean, it's like, I wouldn't want Liwa to be the bad guy, because I like Liwa being a good guy, right? That's a theory.
Personal bias.
Just a theory.
Just a bonkle theory.
Thanks for watching.
Oh boy.
So,
Lyoko Major says in the YouTube chat, who here besides me prefers Hapka's books over Greg's rewrites?
Yeah, I asked.
You question rewrites. I'm sure they're talking about the Shadow Toa, which we addressed before.
In a hilarious case, it's not a rewrite. Hapka's is actually the rewrite. The original story team plan, like, it is in a... Yeah, we've had it in a the first original 3 Bionicle books, when they came out, were written by C.A. Hapka. Rewrites by Greg Farshty came out at a later date. That's...
What?
What? Two things.
It's not a thing.
When did they originally come out? When did the rewrites come out? And what are the sources for this? I'll ask those questions.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, the Shadow Toa fight, excuse me, that was actually a Hapka rewrite, because originally the plan was for the Toa to realize these Shadow Toa were kind of extensions of their inner turmoil, their inner doubts, And once they accepted that, that's how they defeated them. That was the original story team plan. It is in a, oh gosh, what's it called? A visual thing. It's a
Style guide.
Style guide. Thank you. And we have pictures of that. I here a few episodes ago. You can find them online.
That's epic.
Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I mean that's really the most controversial thing. You'll notice a progression with Bionicle as the years go on and as the story progresses, so do the amount of controversies. It's like the first 3 years have a few problems. Prequels, I mean, maybe people think '05 is pointless, or think Mattel was. I mean, Mattel would have been a better choice for the trader, but most people are pretty chill. It's really around the Ignition trilogy that it all kind of starts to explode, because the framework for Bionicle as we know it becomes wildly different. And I don't really know where to even begin discussing it, because there's so much change on a grand scale. Like, there's so many things people could dislike, but and I don't want to say everybody blames Greg for like everything, but there is a lot of, as prior stated, a lot of anti-Greg sentiment that really starts to permeate around the later years. Like, man, I remember when Bionicle used to be good before Greg got a hold of it and then ran it into the ground. But his involvement remained pretty much the same up until 2010, when he got handed basically full control of the serials. So a lot of the problems about '06 that people have, like, maybe he played a role in deciding that the Toa Nuva should be defeated by the Paraka in the way they were. That might be his doing. Or it might be like a mandate that he was, written as based on an outline. He definitely wasn't responsible for the advertising campaigns that people loathe, or the set design things people loathe. But the overarching plot, even for those years, the Ignition saga was laid down on high from a long time ago. Faber has concept art on the Faber files, showing early sketches for Voya Nui and Carta Nui and Mari Nui. This outline was in place for a while. Long while. What?
Nothing. Continue.
Oh my god. So at that point, it becomes kind of blurry to even like say, all right, well, what led to such and such decision. But I know '06 was controversial for a few reasons. As said, the Toa Nuva were dispatched of quite oddly. I know you've expressed your distaste for this in the past. The way the Paraka were able to beat them so easily and so thoroughly.
Yeah, no,
for all the new kids in the class, why do you disagree with that particular plot element?
I just think that it kind of made the power scaling a little wonky. Like, you have the Toa Nuva, the strongest Toa team. This is established. They are the strongest Toa to exist, which is primarily due to the fact they can share Kanohi mask powers, which without individually having the mask. They do anyway, but I digress. And they can also combine the mask powers in tandem. So you have the strongest Toa team, established the strongest team in the entire Matoran universe, going up against a ragtag group of dark hunters who don't like working together as it stands, and losing. And later on, in 2006, you have a ragtag team of Matoran who have not really worked together, sans a few exceptions, who had just become Toa, beat them. In the end, in the overall grand scheme of things, beat them.
Yeah. That's basically what it is. '06 was controversial for that. The fact that it sidelined characters. It was controversial for the Paraka, as I said, the advertising campaigns and whatnot. Things. This was where the tone of Bionicle started to change very drastically. It had already kind of stopped being what it used to be with '04 and '05. The Ignition trilogy definitely shifted pretty much everything in tone and storytelling format. And you can't really say Greg is responsible for specific details necessarily, but you can start to look at things in the later years of Bionicle and question whether it was good or not. So one thing I will say is it's very sci-fi focus versus the more mythological aspects. This was a common point of contention people have in regards to Bionicle. People are like, man, I miss the early days of stuff like Minogue. I miss, just wandering around the island of Matanui, the mythological aspects of the Makuta and the Toa and the Turaga and all those. And then we go to Voya Nui, and it's a wasteland. It's completely barren. You have these, thug gangsters running around trying to get the mask of life. And it doesn't really feel like the Bionicle that I used to know. It doesn't feel like the Bionicle that I grew up with. Number one, as already said, it was all planned. So this was going to be the direction the story went eventually. We were not going to stay on the island of Matanui forever. That was just not going to happen. And number two, I mean, at the end of the day, it does come down to preference. So I would never say anyone's wrong for preferring a certain aspect of Bionicle. I love Minogue, but I also love the Ignition trilogy. I know you and I have discussed numerous times, which is better. But I think it's fair to say you like the Ignition trilogy too.
Yeah, of course.
And the direction things went. You're definitely not part of the G1er mentality, if you can call it that, for G1 itself.
Yeah, it's hard to make a G1 distinction now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna switch to the Mystique image.
What's your this is a good time for that. What's your take on the evolving aesthetic and story? I guess storytelling formats might be a wrong word, but I struggle to find the exact proper word to convey what I'm talking about. But you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The changing of Bionicle's tone, and who may be attributed to that. What's your take?
Well, here, give me a moment, because we had a YouTube comment. The individual who's suggesting that there were Greg rewrites from Hopka's writing said, "Seems I'm outright mistaken about the Greg rewrites thing. My bad. All good. I who knows? I might have been mistaken, so I wanted to make sure. If you determine that it was incorrect, that's all good. You're good. You're cool. All right.
Nice.
So, just want to put, I like to have conclusions to things.
No, I get it. I completely get it.
So, when it comes to you're talking about, when you say aesthetic, do you mean the tone?
It's a wrong word use.
The tone?
Because obviously you can't equate the physical product and the visuals with the storytelling. At the same time, the two do tend to go hand in hand, so aesthetic is definitely the wrong word. Mm-hmm. The tone would be more accurate, yes. Things went very sci-fi, very fast.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm one of those people who just kind of likes Bionicle, just mostly in its entirety. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm always willing to acknowledge its flaws, its errors, things I don't like about it. But I don't have any major gripe or grievance with the direction it ended up shifting. So, like what we see right here, which are the Mystica, like, I don't have a big issue with it going in this, oopsie daisy, this different direction, this more galactic direction. I understand why people wouldn't like that, because it has dramatically shifted from this very fish out of water techno versus nature kind of angle that it was looking at things at. So while you do kind of lose that, it doesn't bother me. As for who is to blame, I mean, I don't really know if anyone is to blame for that. You can make a lot of arguments that a lot of different people are. maybe it was always kind of going to end up being like that because eventually they were going to shift inside the Matoran universe to see the characters in their own natural environment. It's difficult for me to say anyone is to blame because it might have just been a necessity of the story. It had to eventually go in that direction.
And that's, I think, the thing that I really want to communicate personally. I think you probably agree with this. The title of the video is "Who's to Blame," and you can look at any specific instance, and you can be like, all right, well, maybe this person contributed, or maybe this person didn't because of the timeline of their involvement. But my personal belief is that doing the blame game for Bionicle's story and the attributes of it that you don't particularly enjoy is ultimately a fruitless it's a completely fruitless endeavor to do. It's a waste of your time. And my answer to who's to blame for pretty much anything would be nobody. Bionicle was a massive, ever-changing conglomerate of so many different media styles and so many different storytelling things that from 2001 up to when Greg, took complete control with the serials and the canonization, it's difficult for me to look at any particular, individual or any particular entity and be like, you're responsible for this. Because what purpose does that serve? I could say, it's Greg's fault that love isn't canon. And that sucks because I wanted my love to be in Bionicle. But then I turn to you and you're totally fine with love not being in Bionicle. You don't care. You're completely happy. People have different perspectives. People have different preferences for what Bionicle means to them. So what's bad for one person might be bad for another. People hate the sci-fi direction. People want that feeling of walking around on a golden beach back. Our freaking Knack and Jay imagery is the beach with the cow in the background. That's iconic. That's beloved iconography. And it's a golden period in Bionicle's life. And yet, when I compare Minogue with, literally, I'm just going to throw out a random example, Federation of Fear, the story serial, do I really like Federation of Fear? Do I really hate that because Minogue was so good? Or do I love Federation of Fear and so I must hate Minogue because it's the antithesis of that and what that represents? No, to me, they sit comfortably next to each other as two sides of the Bionicle coin. It definitely did shift around its midpoint, but it's not ever something I would leverage as a fault with the writing. It just evolved its identity. And whether that's for you or not comes down to personal preference. But there's stuff to enjoy and appreciate about every era. And that's never more true as we move along than in 09.
Oh boy.
Because 09 is absolutely ripped to shreds by a lot of people.
I don't have an 09 picture.
People hate 2009. Just put up the robots. It's all right. 09 and 010 roll up real nice.
They're fine.
They roll up really nicely because 2010 is barely a year. The Bar Magna, Glatorian expansion and then subsequent culmination is... It's not received well. People are not a fan of it. And what that ranges from outright hatred of the storytelling and the locale. I know Var really didn't like the fact it was in a desert. You could not like it because it abandoned the characters that you spent 8 years learning. You could not like the story direction because it tried to be a reboot and then tried to reintegrate itself a little too quickly. Mononobe's arrival. And you could not like the conclusion because it feels rushed and ham-fisted. And all of it is true. And yet, I look at those things and I, personally speaking, quite like 09. I love the story. I love the characters. I like the setting. It's very different from anything we got before in Bionicle. I like how connected it is to the deep lore of the universe. I like how we learn answers to the long-standing questions there. I love I love all the stuff about it. Sure, the handling wasn't, it wasn't perfect, but I would never try to go on the attack against anyone and try to lambaste, the story writing team for deciding to take the theme in a different direction, because this literally, like, it proves my point. Var hates it, but I love it.
I don't know if Var does Var hate it, or does he just not really care about it because he kind of just that's when he kind of started petering out from it.
I think he actively dislikes it. For everything you said before, he was not a fan of the fact that the Clitorium were just like bootleg Toa who didn't have elemental powers. He particularly, the main thing he was not a fan of was the desert aesthetic. That much I know for sure. Everything else,
I mean, that's fair.
Everything else might just be ambivalence. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But the desert aesthetic definitely was the number one thing he was not a fan of. And I get it. I mean, I'm just looking at the sponsor chat. Petrus is like, really didn't like the Bar Magna era. Azkaban. I don't hate 09, but it feels rushed. Sakota, I wish we could have spent more time on Bar Magna because I love 09. It's a split. It's a very divisive year.
Oh yeah, I would argue that it is the most divisive year. Some might say
completely.
Yeah, some might say it's 2005, but 2005 generally is disliked. You're going to find people that like it, but you aren't going to find them often. With 2010, it is split basically right down the middle.
Yeah, Bar Magna is very, very divisive, and I know you've been on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, definitely.
Before, how do you feel about 09?
I like 09 now. However, I can acknowledge its issues. I think that we didn't get to spend enough time on 2009 before Matanui arrived. We had a prime opportunity for a lot of really interesting world building, character building, getting to know all these new characters, this new environment, and it would leave us wondering, well, where's Matanui? Is he ever coming back? And I think there was a lot of opportunity there, and it kind of got screwed up because things got rushed along because of the cancellation.
Which is true.
So
it's definitely true that happened.
It comes off to me as a case of wasted potential.
Which is fair. I mean, I certainly would never dispute that. As much as I will defend any of these, aspects, I think there's points to where people are very justified in disliking them or being upset with them. Going back to the love all the way to, Bar Magna and its issues. People are totally fine to not like things. I certainly would never argue that people couldn't be critical of things.
Oh yeah,
and there's valid points either way. I guess for me, people have a habit of going very vitriolic against the creators, and it rubs me the wrong way. Most notably, the stars.
The stars. So
on the topic of 2010, the stars.
Real quick though, before we get into the stars, there's a super chat we missed. Here we go. Again by Sir Perry, $2. Why do Toa masks even need mask powers? First of all, thank you for the super chat. And second, why do Toa masks need mask powers?
Great beings thought it was cool. I think he means like in the function of the robot. What purpose do they serve?
Why do they need element powers? I mean, mask powers are just they're augmentations. Like, well, why does anyone need X-ray vision or night vision? Well, because it gets dark. Because they need to see through things. Why does anyone need levitation? What if you're not a toe of air? Stuff like that. And a myriad of reasons I would figure.
Yeah. So the stars. You're very well versed on this subject. You want to explain why the controversy happened with the stars and what actually led to their creation? You recall that well enough.
A controversy with the stars? Just that they're kind of lackluster in comparison to other things. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially that, and then why they exist.
Okay. So, it's no secret that these stars are not liked amongst the community because they are the final sets for the Bionicle theme. Sorry, I'm disassembling Kadak right now, so
You're fine.
there we go. So, Kadak are... Wait, no, I've got... I sidetracked myself. So, Stars Not Well Liked. They are the final sets of the theme, released of 2000, or the Generation 1 theme. And people don't like that because they're very stiff. They're very limited in their pieces. That should not be here. That's an incorrect part. Okay. And so obviously people have a really strong dislike of them because of all of these things.
Oh, yeah.
So the problem about all of this, you can dislike them for those reasons. The issue is that a lot of people lambast Lego for it, and they're like, wow, Lego, you really screwed it up. Just so lazy. You couldn't go the extra mile for the final theme. You had to just give us a gory builds.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, that's not entirely the case. The stars will forever and always be the best we could get. Because if it weren't for the stars, Bionicle Generation 1 would have ended with Matanui, Kina, Akar, Gresh, and Barracks standing over the prototype robot and going, our journey is just beginning, or whatnot. And that's where it would have ended. That is where Bionicle would have ended, with the end of the Legend Reborn. Think about that. I don't think anyone truly could tell me, sincerely, they would have rathered that happen than get the ending that we ended up getting. See, the Legos, the Bionicle team, I believe it was the story team, they petitioned hard for one more wave. One more. Something so that they can give a proper conclusion to the theme. Just something. And that's how the stars came to be. Because if it weren't for the stars existing, we wouldn't have gotten a conclusion to the Bionicle Generation 1 story. And so I can agree the stars are by no means perfect. I think that they are lackluster. They are really disappointing if you're expecting a grandiose send-off. But to keep in context, they are all we could have gotten. And if it weren't for them, we would have ended with TLR. I have an appreciation for them. Not everyone will, and that's fine. But I have an appreciation for what they represent, which was an immense effort to get one more wave after the theme had already been canceled. It was done. There was nothing more for that theme. But they got us one more wave.
Yep. I mean, that's why I bring it up in the context of a story-based discussion. And I'm like, I think it was Greg and Binkmeister were the two people, along with the rest of the story team, if my memory serves, who spearheaded the effort. And like that's commendable, because giving an ending is better than nothing. And it's a testament to the care that they actually had for the fans, that they knew that it couldn't be, it couldn't just be left in a cliffhanger. Not to that magnitude. Bluefin Manta posted in the YouTube chat on a cliffhanger, but a better cliffhanger than the one we ultimately got. And I'm like, well, that's another discussion. But point being, the saga that we were following, the saga of Matanui versus Makuta, did receive an ending that it would otherwise not have received. And that is commendable. The mainline story was succinctly ended. So, if you want to blame anybody for that one, blame Lego. But even then, their decision to take G1 off shelves was made from a good business sense. They didn't want the brand name to be tarnished by stagnation and poor sales. So they took it off to preserve the product line's integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So we've chronicled all of G1 and all these different problems, and they're all valid, and your own personal preferences are valid, but there's really no quick and easy scapegoat. With G2, it's really easy to, because you can just look at the faceless, nameless, corporate execs who didn't do blank, and you can scapegoat them as the bad guys. And every person with an actual name or a face that we've talked to, we got nothing but good vibes from, Merlin Mann, Ryder Wyndham, and the people at NYCC. With G1, people tend to not do that because the perceived community involvement that Greg displayed, or Akume stated something like this earlier in the patron chat, made him a target, him and others.
Oh, easily.
As an easy way to vent frustrations.
It's basically shooting the messenger,
Yeah.
Now,
the only... Wait, go on. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Talking.
No. What were you going to say?
The main part that Greg is responsible for is
here we go.
2010 onwards.
Yeah, okay.
Because that is 100% Greg.
Yeah. Now, we should say this before we're accosted for being Greg shills or listen. Personally, I like the guy. I had a wonderful time talking to him for 3 to 4 hours when I had him on my show. It was a blast. I think he's a really good guy, and I mean, I owe a lot to his novels that really sparked my interest in reading. And so I like what he wrote, and I like how he's interacted with everyone, and I like him as a person, and I like some of the decisions he was involved in making. That all being said, there are obviously things I disagree with when it came to the handling of certain aspects. First and foremost, Too Yet. I did not. He was responsible for the whole Too Yet thing, and I don't like that. I really do not like that. The Too Yet thing was a catastrophe. The other thing I don't really like, that I don't think was handled too particularly well, but could have ended really well had it been given its proper due, was of course the Red Star, and I think it's hard to find people who disagree with this. I think this is a situation where we needed more time, and we never got it. So, the Red Star, most of the serials, the ending of the serials, and where Bionicle kind of cliffhangered.
That's all Greg. Circumstances contributed to make it not, I wouldn't say entirely his fault. Stuff like, believe it or not, Kappa, even back then, forced him off of BZ Power, which took away his easy way of community integration because it was like a year or two before he popped back up on the LEGO message boards. It was hard to contact him outside of those avenues to even get answers to things. And then LEGO's decision to cancel the theme, he admitted, didn't make him feel too good. BZ Power's reaction to things that he was writing didn't make him feel too good. The harsh critique of stuff, the perceived lack of interest, all contributed to his decision to stop writing. And the lack of a place to put it, because BionicleStory.com went down. Comment by Jesse Pup in the YouTube chat. If you guys ever get Greg Farshty on the show, ask him if the rumors about the Ignition movie trilogy are true.
What rumors?
Please, because there probably are. I have not heard these rumors. The only movie trilogy that I have ever heard of is the one that was going to be on Barra Magna. The 3-film deal as part of Tinseltown Tunes that ended up only getting one. I've never heard anything of there being movies for...
Yeah. We were both... I was especially quite involved in the Bionicle community during 2006. And I never heard anything like this. It's possible I could have missed it, but...
Please illuminate.
Absolutely.
But, yeah. Point being, at that point, despite all the extenuating factors, those are Greg's responsibilities. The serials were essentially... He had full autonomy over those. The decisions made post-ending. All the stuff with Velika, all the stuff with Marinder, the Great Beings, Tuyet, Liwa being out of the final fight, Velika, not Velika, well yeah, Velika being a Great Being, I already mentioned. What's his face getting trapped in the alternate dimension, Voltraz getting randomly shunted to the side. Pretty much all those mini controversies Greg does bear the responsibility for, because at that point there was still a story team, I believe, but he was the primary one.
Well, hold on. You're walking back something we established much earlier.
Am I?
If there was a story team, when you say primary one, what do you mean?
In 2010, who was working on the story besides Greg?
There was still a story team. After Bionicle concluded with the final book, then the final, what is it? The final comic?
Yeah.
Then it was just Greg. But for all of the mainline story stuff, there's still the story team that is still story team stuff.
I'm talking about story serials.
Okay, yes. In that case, if it's the story serials, then yes, those are all Greg.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay, fair enough.
Anything to do with the serials.
Okay.
He's the primary one who makes those decisions and carries them out. And that's where a lot of the modern Bionicle controversies come from. The Red Star, all that stuff. You can throw up a picture of Velika if you haven't done so already.
I have not, so I will do that right now.
That's the biggest controversial points, as well as the story being left on a cliffhanger. And then more than that, a lot of people take umbrage with the canonization of things. The fact that not a lot of the story's been left up to mystery. It's this, grab bag for knowledge. Essentially, we must learn everything we possibly can about anything in order to fill this void of story content. It's the classic conundrum of, and of course this is an over, generalization. Trust me, I know that, but it's like, well, if we can get names for the Toa Mangai, that'll make up for the void of not being able to, finish the powers that be. People are trying to fill a hole with the only thing they can. And if Greg isn't writing anymore, but he's still answering questions, then of course people are going to try to learn every scrap of knowledge they can, because it's the only way that people can interact with the story. And Greg obviously is still willing to do it, otherwise he wouldn't answer the questions anymore. But that's a big controversial point of whether that's a good thing or not.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. This next part is more of a theory, which it's like, I feel like there is a subsect of people who also got really, really into the idea of having an effect on canon. It's like a badge of honor to have something canonized, or suggesting something and it would be part of canon. You see on BSO1, you see all the people that suggested something like the name of the Toa Kordak, or the name of the Toa Mangai, or stuff like that. It'd be like, oh wow, all right, well, okay, you suggested it. Now your name will go down in the halls of history as being the one who suggested this and having it canonized. And so for some people, it was a matter of getting their name in the history books for the theme. So,
yeah. In the modern era of Bionicle, that's a point that many people have different opinions on. And I myself fluctuate about it on a given day, But again, tying it back to the central point, even if I say I don't like the canonizations, would I then say that, it's, would I lambast Greg, basically? Would I say that it's his fault that he, stays active in the community and is still willing to answer questions? Is it his fault that he wrote a random, little thing to answer a question about the Earth Tribe on Barra Magna, but he doesn't have the motivation or wherewithal to finish the serials? I mean, maybe that's just all he felt like doing.
I really actually like the Earth Tribe stuff, but that's another...
It's a contribution. He's contributing in some way. He's giving back. It'd be one thing if he just screwed off and left us and there was nobody from Bionicle who's still paying attention to the community, but he still cares. The theme's been gone for 10 years, and he might not write it, even if we wish he did. Even if we'd be more than happy to host it on the TTV message boards. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
Oh my gosh.
But he's still active. He still participates, and that should be appreciated. You can dislike all the story stuff you want, and I dislike plenty of it. But people have this habit of disparaging Greg and demeaning Greg, and really putting him down for a lot of things that have gone wrong in Bionicle. I'm like, he's done more for us than anybody has.
Mm-hmm.
I think he deserves a little bit more respect in the day-to-day conversations. Maybe not idolization, but just basic respect.
Yeah, and I don't like this new age movement of trying to push down on Greg and be like, oh, he didn't do anything. He only did the things that were wrong with Bionicle. But Christian Faber, he's the prodigal son of Bionicle, returned to grace us with
praise be to Faber.
Gosh, dang it. Just give them both the respects that they are due and appreciation for what they have done for the theme, and just leave it at that. It's not a competition. It's not a comparison. It's not a contest. They both did different things for the story, for the theme, for the franchise that were both excellent. One of them had more of a active role in the day-to-day of the story, the ongoing stuff. The other was all foundation. It was all stuff that laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
And so it frustrates me that there's this, I don't know, this kind of competition.
The two are not comparable, and it's a weird competition.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it's really bizarre. It's like there's no gain in it, and people really exaggerate everything that Faber did and kind of downplay everything Greg did. It's like it doesn't need to happen. It doesn't need to be a thing. They both had major contributions to the franchise. Can it not be left at that?
It should be, but we need to elevate Faber.
Of course.
So he can save us.
So he can fix Huki Yanika's color scheme.
14B 2020.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure January 14th has already passed. Or sorry, January 4th.
I saw a post about this literally just like an hour ago, from a Twitter account. It's at Legend of Motonui, saying that he's referencing with 14. He's referencing April 1st.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
Which I never put two and two together because that's not how us Americans.
Oh wait! What? You didn't? You thought you thought he meant January 1st?
I didn't think he meant anything. I never thought there was any date meaning behind the 14. Remember, I was the person who was speculating way back when that it was the 14th Bionicle year.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think it was a date. I think the 14 had some other purpose, but I guess April 1st is. I guess that works.
Yeah, because the rest of the world they flip the dates, so it would be it would be day, month, year, but we do it month, day, year.
Yeah.
So 14B 2020 is April 1st, which is when he posted the first picture and kicked things off.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna see what happens on April 1st, 2020.
Yep, pretty much.
And I got some bad news for everyone that's hoping for Bionicle G3.
Rebel Nature 2.
No. It has a little Overwatch 2, like 2 pop up. I'm announcing for the very first time Rebel Nature 2. What about Rebel Nature 1? It's not out yet, but Rebel Nature 2.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be like Avatar. It's gonna have 1 million sequels in development.
Look forward to Rebel Nature 5. When's it coming out? Well, let's move on. Now announcing Rebel Nature 6.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
So anyway,
All right.
that's basically it. That's all I got. Don't put blame on people. Feel free to critique,
Yeah.
but do it from a lens of the individual idea's merits. You know, don't like '09 because it's rushed. Don't like '09, or rather, don't dislike '09 because it's the big bad Greg who's ruining your beloved characters because he doesn't respect the Toa and he wants to push his new ideas. It's very compelling to fit critiques into a predisposed narrative, to try to figure out a person's intent or whatever, and it's very easy to lambast a single individual for the decisions made by many simply because they're the messenger or the person whose job it is to execute that idea rather than come up with that idea, which I think is a lot of what happened in the early years. But I don't know, I just wish people were a bit more respectful in their cadence. That's what I wish.
No, I agree. I mean, I've been victim of this as well, of having hyperbolic speech about things and over exaggerating things. Certainly not innocent of it. I don't think either of us are. But when it comes to the people that have worked on the theme, I think this comment from Shark Wolf Dark Wolf really sums it up. For real, all the major contributors are like the real life Toa team: Swinnerton, Hopka, Faber, Farshti. It took all of them. And I think that's a really good way of putting it. It did take all of them. Bionicle was not this conceited effort by like 5 people. It was a large team that grew and grew and grew as the franchise grew and grew and grew. And it could only grow because of all of these different talented creative people. And so that when you have so many different people contributing all of these different ideas, it's not a matter of, well, this is your fault. It's just a matter of don't attack the person, attack the idea.
Essentially.
Or the execution.
And it's a problem
of an idea.
that people have. People definitely have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's sad. I wish people would learn and get better, but
I think people can. I think people sometimes are also just frustrated. They're frustrated with how things went. Frustrated with how things ended, because
I understand that
things could have ended better. People are longing for the return of something that might not return. That's why a lot of people are very hopeful about Faber's project. And if you're interested in Faber's project, that's cool. It just probably isn't what you're really, really hoping for.
That's what I found most frustrating, because I feel like there might be some cool stuff we could take away from Faber's project, but not if we fit it into this idealized box of what would be the perfect scenario for it to be, because it's probably not what it's going to end up being. Realistically, it's going to be a cool spiritual successor with some themes that are maybe shared. And I'm like, I'm down for that. If it's that or nothing, I'll at least give it a chance, and then say whether it's bad or not afterwards.
It has to come out for me to be able to give it a chance.
That's also a valid point of view as well.
Yeah.
It does have to come out. I will agree there.
Yeah.
But honestly, with that, that's basically all I have to say on the matter.
Yeah.
Just be nicer to people.
Because
realistically, no individual wanted to sabotage Bionicle G1 in any way.
No, of course not. And just always look to explore what... do research, look into things, look into the history of the theme and the franchise, and try and understand the context behind certain decisions that may have been made. I think that's also very important.
Definitely.
So, we'll get into questions, but before we do that, there's a question from Whatware on YouTube. TTV channel, have you guys tried getting an interview with Faber or Swinnerton? Would be amazing to hear about the early development of the theme. So, in regards to Alistair Swinnerton, I have actually gotten a chance to talk to him. He is fantastic. He's really, really super fun conversation. I got to talk to him about not only his new book, maybe not new anymore. It came out, I think, about a year ago. It's called The Multiverse of Max Tovey. It's Maxtovey. It's a really good read. I highly recommend it. But I also did get to talk to him about Bionicle and the early development of it. That's over on my channel. I don't like to advertise it, but it is there. It is it's a resource for you to utilize. Additionally, if you're interested in more of the in-depth stuff about the Bionicle story in its early years, or unused early story concepts, then I'll go ahead and once again link a post by community member Maku, who has posted an absolutely outstanding document on the TTV message boards where he really picked the mind of Swinnerton about this. Really great document. Highly recommend it. There's a link in the chat right now. As far as Faber is concerned, we have tried for years. I think easily since 2016 or earlier to try and get Christian Faber on for any kind of a sit-down conversation, and we have consistently, unequivocally failed in every way, shape, and form to try and get a hold of him. He's very reclusive. He's very difficult to get a hold of. He's very difficult to contact, and we have not been able to actually get him on for anything, and I don't think we're going to.
He did say yes at one point.
He said yes at one point, but again, we don't have a consistent way of contacting him, and he's quite reclusive. So,
yeah, I mean, in the early days, my main source of investment was trying to figure out the project. Try to figure out what it was all about. At this point, I pretty much know what it's all about. So I know it's not going to be Bionicle. I can just wait and see.
okay.
So, all right. Let's do some questions. Everyone, post up in the YouTube chat and the Patreon chat, and we'll do a few from both. Hit me with what you got about the Bionicle story, about whatever. I'll start by reading a not question and reading this comment from Dr. Ongabongo on YouTube, who says, sadly, Bionicle 4 has been canceled in favor of Lego Despacito 7.
Okay.
It is a
All
bummer.
right.
It is definitely a bummer that has happened.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
All right.
So Gear Brick saying this is partially a joke. I hope. I'll read it. At the TTV channel, but in the latest video Faber uploaded to his personal YouTube channel, he says a lot to look forward to in 2020. Rebel Nature, Cryoshell is a new album, and Biological Chronicle. That, ladies and gentlemen, is unequivocal proof that Bionicle is returning this year. But I'll admit I'm lost on how I'll be able to convince retailers to carry the new products.
I'm just going to hope it's a joke. No, that's all I'm going to say. We've done an entire
all
episode.
I'll say is there's a reason why he said Biological Chronicle. Think about why that might be.
Andrew Sever, I won't make this one of the questions, but they asked, am I allowed to ask in-universe lore questions? Absolutely.
By all means.
Yeah.
Max Wu on YouTube says, what's your favorite Bionicle Lego Ideas project besides Sakota's?
Sakota's.
I enjoy the Temple of Time. Personally, it's a little rough around the edges, but I think it could be turned into a pretty great set as long as it ditches the HF style minifigures in favor of actual minifigures, a la Sakota's. And past that, I really like the Tahu UCS model.
I like the Great Spirit Robot personally. I think that is my second favorite.
That's also cool.
Yeah.
Bruno Macedo, is 14B 2020 the first year of Bara Magna's top model?
Stop asking joke questions. We gotta get the actual ones. Dang it. We gotta wrap up.
Chelsea Rave says, I'll just repost this, but did you guys hear about the new early Minogue dialogue that was discovered on Wayback Machine? Jala says he's the son of Lee. I vaguely recall hearing about this from before, but not from Wayback Machine. It was in the same way that people discovered the stuff about Papu and Rangi.
Yeah.
that same batch. But yes, I am familiar with that, and it's pretty interesting.
I don't have any
Just
thoughts on
goes
it.
to show. It just goes to show how wild Templar was planning on running free from actual canon. Let's see. In patron chat, Ozkabot, would you have been more or less happy with good guy slash bad guy builds for the stars as opposed to a gory builds?
I'd be much less happy.
Yeah, man,
Much less happy.
all my problems would remain the same. Tiny representations of beloved characters with minimal articulation. It wouldn't have used the Avatoran system, and it would have used standard parts. So I guess from that perspective, it would be better. But how far you really want to take that? Like they're basically the same thing, just on a smaller scale. You know.
Yeah.
And I can't even picture them being done on that scale without just looking ridiculous. Magic Ninja, if there were any years that you would have rewritten slash redone, what would it be and how would you do it? I think LJ and I might be on the same page about this. If not 2005, it'd be 09. Motonui shouldn't have landed so quickly.
Yeah. He shouldn't have landed so quickly, and he should have been much different. He should have been rude, he should have been arrogant, and he should have been humbled by the Way of Life Bar Magna inhabitants have, and he probably should have been humbled by some pretty substantial defeats and realizing that he really can't get back to the way that things were without assistance.
Yeah. A few comments from the YouTube chat. I'm just going to consolidate about the Red Star. Triceratops wasn't the Red Star always intended to be some kind of satellite back when they were first writing the story? And then 117 crap says in LJ's Greg interview, he said the Red Star would have made the revived to be like zombies, right? You want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. No. So, the Red Star was always just kind of like a backpack for the Matoran universe. That's really all it ever was, and it orbited the Matoran universe and helped it take off when it needed to leave a planet. It was at no point ever intended to be what Greg ended up making it, which was kind of a reviving machine. That was never its intention. That is a Greg decision. I think that, again, it's the kind of thing where in universe that makes a whole heck of a lot of sense to me. I think that is actually a reasonable thing to have. Narratively, though, it is a very terrible thing to have because it eliminates the greatest narrative risk, which is permanent death. Obviously, Greg wasn't going in that direction. He was going to make it more of an introspection on what it means to be alive in the Matoran universe. And I think that could have been really interesting. And we talked about it on the show. He acknowledges that, having it be a way to just bring back characters would cheapen the fact that characters can die. And so he acknowledged that and said basically it'd be zombies on a satellite, which I think would have actually been very interesting.
Pretty much. Andrew Sever, why was Mizrix placed in charge of the Brotherhood if Pterodax was destined to get his own robot?
Well, you can't run the Matoran universe and run the Brotherhood and Makuta at the same time, can you? That's my theory. And obviously, things substantially changed once they were given sentience, so I don't know what to tell you from there. But there wasn't really a story reason that I'm aware of.
So many good questions in the YouTube chat. People are firing out. Leoka Major, why do companies seem to have some aversion to franchises that pull them out of the, for lack of a better word, drain? For example, Hasbro with BW. I don't know what that is.
What?
Wait, maybe Beast Wars, because I saw that trending on Twitter a while ago. And recently Lego with Bionicle / CCBS. I don't know if they do. Again, it's very easy to characterize companies or individuals to believe certain things based on a preconceived narrative. that you might want to be a part of. Like, for instance, if Lego cancels Bionicle, it means they hate Bionicle, which is not necessarily the case. It probably isn't the case, but it certainly can feel that way towards us fans who want it to be want it to be successful, want it to be loved. There is a theory about that I've seen many people circulate, and that is that Lego doesn't like Bionicle because they feel like they had to stoop to the low of other toy companies to save themselves, and they're embarrassed that what ended up saving their company were non-minifigure action figures with weapons and all this stuff. That is a betrayal of what Lego stands for, and as such they're ashamed of it. And that's a little bit of a leap if you want my opinion. Who knows, there might be a smidgen of truth to it, that they wish it had been a minifigure that had saved them rather than a completely new thing. But I don't think it holds up too much under scrutiny when you see how long they ran with it. Like, they ran with Bionicle for 10 years just because G2 failed. It failed for other reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, hey, it was brought back. So.
Yeah. Whatware asks, thinking about it, what do you think is the source of the community's newfound fascination of Bionicle's original conception and beginnings? It's not newfound.
No, it really isn't.
It's not newfound at all. The first 3 years have been called the golden years for as many years as I've been a part of the fandom, which, for in case you're wondering, has been 12. So it's definitely not new. But I do think G2 had a resurgence of it, because G2 tried to echo those first 3 years in a lot of ways in terms of premise, aesthetics, or whatever. And because G2 did it wrong, people tend to look to the past to see, well, how was it done right before? Which prompts a lot of self-reflection on why we liked 01 to 03 the first go-round, which is probably why you're seeing more of it nowadays than maybe you did 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Probably going to do 2 more questions. The last one from YouTube asks... I lost it. Okay. Zach Allen, would you prefer brick-built Bionicle G3 or CCBS Bionicle G3? Keep sales and success in mind. Personally speaking, CCBS, but sales and success, brick-built without a second thought.
Yeah.
Pretty much cut and dry. I love me some Construction, but there's zero hope of it selling as well as minifigures in this modern era, or in terms of system bricks, I should say.
Yeah.
Think you agree to that?
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Last comment. Well, okay, I'll do 2 more since we have 2 from the patron chat. Second to last is Petrus, who asks, if you could eliminate a single character from the storyline, who would it be, and why is it Botar? When Botar was eliminated, I would eliminate Botar's replacement and just keep Botar. Kill somebody else besides the guy that's a plot device. It just makes it awkward when you need that plot device to come back. That being said, jokes aside, Solek.
Yeah, but if it were Solek, it'd just be replaced by somebody else, like Solek.
Yeah, it could have been a cool white and transparent light blue Matoran with some cool new weapon pieces and a color that wasn't gray.
Yep. Anyway, removed from the story entirely, is that right?
Yep.
I wouldn't remove them, but I'd certainly shorten their existence to yet.
Yeah.
But
remove to yet's revival.
Yeah, basically. But I don't know if there's anyone I would remove.
All right. That being said, final question is from the Mockingbird, who asks, what is your single favorite moment from the Bionicle story? You go first. I gotta think.
Lewa versus Anua. Easily. Without a shadow of a doubt, nothing else comes close. It is the one that absolutely sticks with me. It has stuck with me since I saw it. It's so cool. It had a hand in changing how Lego looks at violence or handles violence. It was kind of a turning point for the Lego company in regards to how it handles violence. Because sure, you had Star Wars, but this was a very different physical combat type of violence where characters were clashing weapons together and throwing each other around, and it was a big thing for them to actually get that to happen. And of course it has Lewa in it, and I think the fight was really cool, so it's my favorite moment.
All right. My favorite moment, and you're gonna groan at this because I'm an 06 shill.
Correct.
But my favorite moment is the end of Dark Destiny. You have this entire book where it's split, and you have, the Toa Nuba trying to claw back some power and ally with the Voyatoran to figure out a way to stop the Paraka, even though they're missing all their gear. You have the Matorans' adventures in Karzani, and it all culminates in this final moment where it's really a collection of moments. It's the last 1.5 chapters of Dark Destiny, if that counts, where the Toa mount an assault on the Paraka. The Paraka are scattered. They're fighting each other. People are down for the count. They have all the Matoran there. They have all their gear back. It's like the most hopeful feeling ever. And then with one slash of his sword, Brutaka decks 12 people and just destroys them all. And it was always so hilarious to me because I just tried to imagine in my head the formation they would have had to be in running at them for Brutaka to be able to cleave through 12 people with one slash of his sword. Until I've been watching a lot of One Piece, so now I just imagine Brutaka as Zoro every time I think about it. And he slashed his sword so powerfully the burst of air made them all collapse. I don't know. I would love to see that moment, it represented visually. And then that's the worst feeling ever. Your heroes are defeated, and this time there's really no hope for them to come back from it. Everything is terrible, and then 6 canisters wash ashore and get struck by lightning, and then the Anika emerge, and all the Paraka look to the sky. For some reason, a chill goes down their spines. It's I love it. I'm an 06 hype man. I live off that hype.
No, that's fair. No, that's a really good moment. I like that one too.
It's the darkest hours followed by that bright flash of hope.
Yeah, I mean, heck, I really like Dark Destiny. I think I was super excited for that book.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically it. That's all the questions for this week. That's all the time we have. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. You got something from it. And thank you all very much, as always, for your continued support and engagement. I really appreciate everybody for coming to check it out. Hope you had some fun times. And remember, Faber will save us.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, end of the episode plugs. TTV message boards. If you're 13 years or older, head on over. It's board.ttvchannel.com. A lot of fun times had there. Just read the rules, be over the age of 13, and you can join in on any discussions and ask LEGO author Greg Farshty a whole slew of questions. I don't know if he'll answer them, but you can ask him. Additionally, patreon.com/TTVchannel. We currently have a Factions Minecraft server on the island of Matanui up. It's going to be version 1.14.4. It's been a whole lot of fun. And of course, Twitter at the TTV channel, at Messinac, and at the LJ Johnson. Remember, that's JOHNSEN.
All right. Well done. Thank you, LJ.
Yep. Thank you, Messa.
And go ahead and play that music. We'll see this out. Thank you all once again. I'm Messinac.
I'm LJ.
Streaming to you live from a golden beach. This was Mac and Jay.